We are not just right brain or left brain people. Actually, there's a system in brain called corpus callosum. Bundle of fibers between those two hemispheres. Our ability to create communication between our right and left hemispheres is where all the really great leadership actions come in. And that's been the case throughout the history. And I can affirm that because I read several biographies during the pandemic. And those great scientists all of a sudden start getting emotional and thinking intuitively. Or those great artists all of a sudden really getting cognitive and changing the schools of thought in their art that they do. So what we are going to do today is to play around with this concept of a wisdom-oriented leader who feels like an intuitive scientist, thinks like a disruptive artist, acts like an organizational engineer, and reflects like an ethical philosopher. I know this is huge, but we are going to spend the whole evening around this concept with our guests and with our students and with our great audience here with a lively Q&A session.
Provost Nevarez, you are serving as Provost of California State University, Sacramento, with over 40,000 students, thousands of faculty and staff. And we're wondering if you might consider these 4 components of wisdom-oriented leadership as defined here today. And just let us know, is there one of them that resonates with you, or 2, or all, and why?
That's a good question. I think, I teach, leadership. I used to. Now with this new gig as provost, I don't no longer do. But yes, praxis, right? We call it praxis in the academy, where, the theory and philosophies, thinking in the abstract, do they actually make sense, at the ground level? And definitely with this position, the experiment, it's full on, right? Now, in terms of your question, I think there's no one. I think that it's a multiplicity. It's what I call an integrative approach to leading, and that is that you need the intuitive approach, in that you're looking into the intricacies of issues, the intricacies, the nuances. And then from there, you tap into a particular approach, right? So you also need to be the disruptor. That is, to ensure that you're always bringing to scale practices, that you're staying current, that you're meeting the ongoing evolving needs of the students that we serve, our faculty, our constituents. Organizational engineer, for me, that talks about someone having the ability to create a plan, facilitate that plan, create a process, so you can reach the goals that you have set, and then also ensure that folks are being, held accountable in terms of reaching those particular goals. And then the philosopher, the ethical philosopher, talks about, for us, for example, here at Sacramento State, we view it as an ethical obligation, a moral obligation, and a commitment to our students that if we bring you onto this campus, we enrolled you, then it's our ethical responsibility to ensure that we retain you and that you actually graduate you. So, that's a value, an ethical value that underscores what we do here at Sacramento State, and it's part of, one of our imperatives of student success. So, so all to say is, it was talked about earlier. It's not one, but it's a little bit of all. And why should it be a little bit of all and not one or the other? Because we work and function in positions and leadership positions that are very convoluted. They're very dynamic. They're very challenging. So if you use a uni approach or a soul approach, you're doing a disjustice to arriving at an optimal solution for that particular, to address that particular problem, right? So, at the same time, it depends on the level of how complex the issue is, right? If it's a simple issue, you can just use one approach, right? Like, for example, making a decision in terms of, when to, hold a meeting. Well, you don't know, you don't need to, consult with folks in terms of when to hold a meeting. You have a pretty good idea. So use your intuition to kind of drive that decision. But if it's a more complex decision, then you need to tap into to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5. There's one up there that I would add, and that's a political approach, right? We work and function in institutions that are politicized, right? And very political. And if you're apolitical, then you're disadvantaging yourself and you're disadvantaging the organization, department, or division that you're part of. So you need to be a political animal, right, from that perspective. So, so all to say, it's complex, right? Leadership is complex. So I'm going to throw, another element that it's situational, right? We have, the situational theory, we got contingency theory that talks about you doing an assessment of the intricacies of the issue, right? Who are the players? How complex is the issue? What's the history behind that particular history? So once you do that assessment, then you can actually tap into your toolbox and use an intuitive scientist approach, or use a disruptive approach, or use all 4 or beyond those 5, depending once again on the contingency factors that are actually underscoring that particular issue or problem you're trying to address.
So speaking of contingency, that is not just doing whatever is required, but also deciding which toolbox to choose from in which specific situation. And thank you for bringing political, because I was driving today as being a typical scholar. I was thinking about this. Is there something that we are missing? It's exactly what I had in mind was we don't have political element here. This model is too naive. But thank you for bringing that political context, and it really brings in the context to all this.